How's everyone doing?
Doing well, Mayor. How are you doing today?
Life is good.
Great. We had a budget meeting last night. I don't know whether the cities or the counties are doing, but I've basically been using most of my money for police operations.
Do you want me to turn mine up or you want to turn yours up?
I'm sorry.
I'll turn mine up. That way when I get talking,
Okay, yeah. So I'll just put my.
Everyone, please remember your microphones are on right now.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, Mayor. What were you saying?
Oh, I was just commenting. We had a budget meeting last night at City Council, and I have no idea what other cities, counties have done with their CARES Act money, but as I began to say, I've basically been spending mine for police department operations entirely. However, I had a council person or two felt that this money came to us to give portions of it back to the community on different services. So first go around last night, we appropriated $192,500 out last night with a subject approval by the city council this Monday evening. So that's where we stand with last night's appropriations. We gave a little bit to a lot of different people, a lot of, nonprofits, food banks, you name it. So anyway, I don't know if there's anybody has any comments about that subject or not.
I know a lot of people were focusing mostly on their first responders for their CARES Act funds, but I know some have been using it for small business loans as well. Danielle might be able to speak a little bit more about what some other communities have been using it for within her division.
We honestly, we stayed away from businesses last night. It was just the position of the budget committee that would just open up Pandora's box on many different fronts. But I do have some applications here from the city of Elizabethtown, different places I got from KLC on how they went about the request forms. But my budget committee just decided to stay away entirely from business help itself. So anyway.
All right.
It's been a really good windfall of money for, seems like to me, for all of us. Now, what people have done with it and needed it for what reasons, I'm not sure, but seems like it's been a huge windfall of money.
Absolutely.
All
I think we've reached 2 o'clock, Kevin, if you'd like to get us started.
I was gonna say, I was looking at the number of participants. I think we should have a good pool to pull a quorum from. So I will go ahead and call to order the February 25th, 2021 meeting of the Kentucky Regional Planning and Development Agency Board of Directors. I want to thank everybody for attending. Just a couple of housekeeping items. When we do votes today, you can either raise your hand to signal aye, or you can say aye. That way you do not have to unmute yourself every time that we do take a vote. And then I will call for those in opposition, and you can again raise your hand to show opposition or unmute yourself and vote. At this time, I'll turn it over to Jarrett for a roll call.
Thank you, Kevin. I'll start with the Honorable John Black,
Here,
Honorable Bernard Bowling,
Here.
Honorable John Logan Brent, Honorable Sean Crothers, Honorable Byron Chapman,
Here.
Honorable Beverly Chester Burton, Honorable Jack Kaufman, Honorable Bill Deeriff,
Here.
Mr. Brian Dixon, Honorable David Eaton, Mr. Kevin Beatty,
Here.
Mr. Jeff O'Brien for the Honorable Greg Fisher. I see you there, Jeff. Honorable Jeff Gahan, Honorable Keith Griffey,
Here.
Honorable Treva Hodges, Honorable Dan Eisen,
Here.
Mr. Andy Crouch,
Here.
Honorable Todd Pollock,
Present.
Honorable John Riley,
Here.
Honorable Joe Robinson, Honorable Jerry Strummers,
Here.
Honorable Rick Tanini, Honorable Jim Travis, and the Honorable David Vogel.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
All right, thank you. And again, welcome to the February 25th meeting. We're going to go ahead and get started here. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of January 28th. I need a motion and a second, please.
Motion to approve. Second, Bill Deeriff.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, minutes are approved. January financial statements, Tom.
And to get unmuted there, sorry, sir. In your package, starting on page 24 is the January financial report. And on this report, we have included the budgets that were approved by the board at the last meeting. And also later we've got a budget modification, and the primary change in that is some additional money we got in the program area. So there's what's shown here is essentially what the board, as far as our in-house activity, is what the board approved last month budgetarily. And as you can see, we're 58% through the year, and each first page is a summary of elements grouped by division, and everyone, as we presented the budget last month, we knew we were going to have surpluses, and you can see that we're spending well under that level of 58% in each division. Following the summary of elements is the agency-wide line item revenues and expenditures. And again, that reflects the budgets that have been approved by the board. And we are in good shape. You might notice that some of the social services funding shows 100% being expended. But the Department of Aging and Independent Living has asked us to use our state funds and our CARES funding before we use some of the others. So where we're showing 100% spent, that's at the direction of Dale, and there are more than ample funds, so we think, to get us to the end of the year. So we don't anticipate any problems. The expenses, again, starting on page 27, there's nothing that we see that would cause us any concern about staying within budget. The last part of the report is the balance sheet, and it shows we're in a sound financial position. I'll be glad to answer any questions anyone might have.
Thank you, Tom. Any questions?
I'll make a comment, Vogel here. Seems to me like you've improved the clarity and the readability of this document, and I appreciate that.
I apologize that there was some problem with the budget last month, and our goal is to try to get it as legible and helpful as possible.
Thank you.
All right, Tom, is any action needed on that?
I just approved.
All right. Need a motion and a second to approve the financials.
Motion to approve. Bill Dare.
Second, David Vogel.
All right, have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Seeing, hearing none, all those in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, financials are approved. Moving on to the next item, report from Commissioner of Department of Aging and Independent Living. Victoria Eldridge is that commissioner. She serves in the position which is a part of the Cabinet of Health and Family Services in Kentucky. She is also a licensed occupational therapist. As a child, she was diagnosed early with epilepsy, which empowered her to go into the health services field. Victoria has spent her career either working in state government or providing client-centered occupational therapy services to individuals across the lifespan. She previously served under Governor Steve Beshear as Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Aging and Independent Living. During her previous tenure with Dale, she worked to ensure state and federal services for Kentucky's seniors and persons with disabilities were delivered appropriately to ensure independent living through contract negotiations, revising and updating state regulations, and overseeing the state guardianship program for 4,500 of Kentucky's most vulnerable citizens. Most recently, Victoria worked as an occupational therapist for Easter Seal Society Cardinal Hill Pediatric Therapy Clinic, a nonprofit organization in Lexington. While practicing, she further developed the Pediatric Eating and Swallowing Clinic to address feeding difficulties and delayed developmental milestones in infants and toddlers. She obtained specialized training in the fields of pediatric neurodevelopment, autonomic nervous system regulation, and fragile infant feeding. Previous clinical experiences include working with individuals to gain independence after surviving amputations, non-brain injury trauma injuries, spinal cord injuries, joint replacements, and burns. Additionally, Victoria developed and implemented a client-centered dementia program for an inpatient rehabilitation facility. Commissioner Eldridge grew up in Louisville and is a graduate of Eastern Kentucky University, where she holds a bachelor's degree in occupational science and a master's in occupational therapy. She currently resides in Georgetown with her husband, Coleman III, and their 3 sons, Coleman, Carter, and Camden. I see a pattern there of C's for some reason. They have a divided household, however, as she proudly cheers for the Louisville Cardinals, but her husband and her 3 sons cheer for the Kentucky Wildcats. Ms. Eldridge, welcome.
Thank you. And I see Jessica shaking her head already. So I'm hoping that shaking the head at my husband and my boys for cheering for the Wildcats. So I just want to say thank you so much for having me. It is such an honor to be speaking to you all today, especially to my hometown, to KIPDA. It's truly an honor. And what a year, what 2020 has been, and for 2021 as well. We're just holding on to what we can grab to get through the year. And I just want to say a special thank you to Director Jarrett Haley and to Jessica Elkin as well for all of your work and support and collaboration within the Department for Aging and Independent Living since I came on. And for those of you who don't know, I was in this position, it was actually a year ago yesterday, but was in this position for 2 weeks before we had our first COVID case. So this is all I have been doing, living, breathing is COVID, that initial response. And then luckily and very fortunately, we're working on the vaccine rollout. And so things are moving quick. It's very much one of these hurry up and wait, and just knowing and keeping at the forefront, as I've shared with Jarrett and with Jessica. Our motto is, through this, we get through it with grace and flexibility, as we have extended significant grace to all of the ad districts and great flexibility through this. And when the pandemic first hit, it wasn't a matter of what are the rules, but what needs to be done. Rules were, even at the federal government level, do what you need to do to continue to serve seniors, to continue to support individuals living independently in their home, to make sure that they can stay as safe and healthy as possible. 2020 was a monstrous year, and we know that 2021 is like today's weather, starting to shine some sunlight. So again, I just want to say thank you for this partnership. It has been just phenomenal. And I want to say a special thank you to my staff as well. I know many of you work closely with Division Director Amy Metzger and Division Director Marnie Mountjoy, and just want to say thank you to them. As a state, Kentucky has far surpassed what we have ever done before. We have served to date 3.3 million meals to seniors. We traditionally, in a normal year, serve about 2 million meals. A lot of this additional meal funding is due to the federal funds that we have received, in addition to some additional funding from the governor's office. When the governor announced on May 13th that senior centers would be closing, he also promised and continues to follow through on that promise that any individual age 60 and older who wanted a meal could get a meal. And we saw that happen with the way that KIPDA stepped up to figure out how they needed to get meals to seniors. There were a lot of innovative and creative ideas going on, lots of new partnerships that were happening with regard to local restaurants stepping up to get meals to seniors. There were some creative ideas around the state utilizing school buses as they were providing meals to children, also getting meals to grandparents as well. In addition to that, partnering with local farmers to get meals to seniors. So this creativity and innovation, we continue and strive to push our community partners forward, especially as we look on the horizon to get out of COVID, and how we can continue with that creativity and innovation moving forward. We are grateful for the collaboration and for the support of the board that you all have provided to move forward. With that, I also want to address a few other things. The governor has been very open and honest with a lot of conversations moving forward with regard to racial equity. And understanding what that looks like as we move with our programs, but also with a focus on vaccine, and truly understanding the difference between equality and equity. And we are doing a lot of work here within the cabinet. There are cabinet meetings on racial equity and what we could do, as well as working with our partners across the state. I know Jessica has been in some of those discussions as well, and there'll be more information coming out on that, but just keeping that in mind as we move forward. And this is something that the governor is truly focused in on, especially with regard to vaccine outreach. With regard to vaccines, we are working closely with the local health departments in the Kentucky Department of Public Health to make sure that individuals have access to vaccines. I know transportation to and from an individual's home to a vaccine clinic is a significant barrier, not only in Kentucky, but across the country. I finished a call yesterday with FEMA with regard to individuals with disabilities, ensuring that they have access to vaccine sites, and transportation was yet again a #1 issue. And I will share with you all, we know within the world that we work, transportation was an issue before COVID. Transportation getting to a vaccine is a major issue now. And we want to keep that discussion at the forefront as we move forward to ensure that individuals who are aging or have disabilities have access to transportation so they can be independent and active participants in their community. So we are looking forward to those opportunities and those partnerships at any level. And this, again, as I had said early on, thinking outside of the box. Well, to be honest, by now we have broken this box down, rebuilt it, and made it bigger, better, stronger, and we're still thinking outside of the box with the work that we're doing. So just know that we're continuing to push out information on that. And as the governor had shared at his press conference on Monday, I believe it was, that the larger vaccine sites will be looking to go into phase 1C. We recognize that that is a large number of our individuals. That's about 500,000 Kentuckians that are 60 plus alone. That doesn't include all of the other essential workers and those with underlying conditions impacted by COVID. So again, we are working to extend grace and flexibility and looking to see how we could partner to ensure those whose turn it is to have a vaccine have a shot at that. Additionally, we're working closely with public health and with our regional partners to implement our Shot of Hope at Home program for individuals who are truly homebound and who could not access or partake in transportation services to get to a vaccine, that we will be able to bring that vaccine to them. And Johnson & Johnson is proven an effective vaccine to get to these individuals and doesn't require all of the specialized handling that Pfizer and Moderna do. So we are working very hard on that. There are vaccine equity discussions going on at the cabinet level as well, and just pushing forward the need to make sure that we push out as much education and information as possible so individuals can make an informed decision. With that, we are also looking forward to what comes out of the legislative session. We all know that February and March are always exciting times as we've got legislative session going on, and then also during contract discussions as well for the upcoming fiscal year. So it is a busy time here at the department. We are grateful for our community partners, and again, grateful for each of you all and the leadership that you all provide within your communities. So thank you so much for having me here today. And Jared, I'm not sure on time, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them, or Jarrett and Jessica have my contact information. I'm more than happy to respond via email. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Victoria. I think we have a few minutes. If we have a couple of questions, we might be able to entertain those. Any questions of Victoria?
Yes,
Jeff
sir.
Vogel.
Would you like to explain the difference between equality and equity?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So the way we see equality is if, and I can share a picture with this. There's a common picture that goes around. I will share with you all. I am shorter in stature. I played basketball for Holy Spirit and St. Rita up in Louisville, but I stopped growing in about 5th grade. But if you think of it from an equality standpoint, if everyone is trying to reach up for an apple from an apple tree, and everyone each gets a 5-inch block to stand on to reach for that apple. Well, sir, to be honest, that 5-inch block probably wouldn't do me much good to reach up for that apple. But if we get someone taller, much taller, like Derek Graham, for example, he could probably reach that apple without that block. Versus if we look at, and that's on the equality standpoint, so everyone equally gets the same stool to stand on to reach for an apple tree. If you look at equity, for me to reach that apple tree, I might need an 8-foot block to stand on to reach the apple tree, whereas Derek Graham may only need may not need a block at all. So just keeping that in mind, that what an individual needs to reach for something, their supports that they may need to assist may be at varying levels. However, keeping in mind that, especially within the cabinet, we want to provide as much assistance as possible so that individuals are successful. And if we give everyone the same equal amount of services that they need, some individuals may be successful, other individuals may need additional services to reach their goals. So I hope does that explain it?
Well,
is that easy to understand?
yes and no. I mean, these terms are fairly vague and subjective in my mind, and what you think is equality and equity, somebody else might not. The only thing I actually heard you say here is that if there are homebound people who cannot get out, and I have no idea how many in Kentucky there are, but they, I guess maybe a shot should be arranged to come to their house if they can't leave the house. I can see where that is a service that, should be provided. But I don't know past that point exactly, how that would be or where it would be. I think there are a lot of terms out there that are being circulated. I hear that, frankly, it don't make sense to me and appear to be very subjective and, I don't know exactly what word I want, weighed in a way that is not a way we've weighed things in the past. I mean, I think homebound people or people who can't get to a place should definitely have a service, provided for them. People who can get to a place should get there. And I don't think if you're not smart enough to get lined up with something, we all can't be equal. We all have individual talents, skills.
That's right.
There is no perfect equality possible among any group of people. And
Yes, sir.
just have to do the best you can. But
Yes, sir. And I'm absolutely right there with you. If we all gave everyone vouchers to go get a free meal, well, that's equality versus equity. Someone might be able to get that voucher on their own, and someone might be able to get that, use that voucher for a free meal on their own and get themselves there, whereas someone else might need transportation assistance and then assistance to get ready. This is the occupational therapist in me coming out, but someone might need assistance to get dressed, and then transportation assistance to then go to the restaurant. That's equity. So I am right there with you. And that is one of the things that I truly appreciate, that the federal government has supported us in recognizing that any individual, especially seniors who are homebound or are sheltering in place because of COVID, that they would then qualify for a homebound meal. We do recognize that there are some individuals who are able to access transportation, are able to get themselves to a senior center to partake in drive-through pickup meals, whereas there are other individuals who are not able to do that, but they should still get that same meal, whether they're homebound or going to the drive-through center. Absolutely.
well, it's just so long as there's a lot of cracks out here and holes to fall into. And just heard today about people getting money for food. Okay. But when the bills come in from the grocery store, they have dog collars they're purchasing. There's a lot of abuse that creeps in the more the circumstance attempts to be defined down to the absolute lowest common denominator possible. I mean, it can't be done, I don't think. But I mean, I'm for everybody having their opportunity to have a shot. And you mentioned one other term, vaccine equity. Could you explain that?
Sure. So that means there are some individuals across the state, I'll take myself for example, in which I'm able to drive and get to a vaccine location to take my shot. And so I'm able to do that on my own. Whereas there are other individuals who do not have access to transportation. They do not have childcare available to them so that someone could watch their child to get to a vaccine clinic. So enabling them and providing them as much support as possible so they could go and receive their vaccine. As well, within that, making sure that as we're doing vaccine clinics, they're being offered in the evenings, as well as on the weekends for individuals who, like many of you and I, are working Monday through Friday. Our work hours are 8:30 to 4:30. However, I'm sure like many of you, work starts at 7 a.m. and ends about 9 p.m. if you're like me. And so therefore, if vaccine clinics are only offered 8 to 4 Monday through Friday and you can't get away from work, or like many of our individuals who are working in fast food, working in restaurants, or working in the business industry, they don't have time to take off to go and get their vaccine. So we need to make sure that we have clinics available on the weekends and on the evenings. Additionally to that, we need to make sure that communities who have been profoundly impacted by COVID-19, that we show that same impact with regard to getting vaccines out to them. We know that there are certain areas of the state that when you base it out per population, per capita, that they have been more profoundly impacted by COVID. You can even look to see at the governor's map going to KY COVID-19 to see where the hotspots are for COVID. And so within that, again, it gets back to that equality versus equity, and making sure that we're doing an equitable distribution of the vaccine, as the governor has alluded to, and not doing an equality distribution. And for example, we saw that up in Pendleton County. Pendleton County does not have as many residents as what Jefferson County does. So therefore, Pendleton County should not receive the same amount of vaccines as what Jefferson County does based upon population. And this is also part of the reason why, as the governor has alluded to, why some counties are able to move into other phases of the vaccine rollout versus some counties are still in phase 1B, and yet other counties have moved into phase 1C. So again, that's another example of vaccine equity, to make sure that we have everything we need to support the individuals in our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Commissioner, I want to just tell you thank you. I really appreciate you joining us today. Thank you for all of the support between you and your staff. You all, as you said, have been very flexible and tremendous to work with, and I've communicated throughout this whole COVID pandemic. And I just want to thank you for being such a good partner.
I appreciate it. And thank you all for the support. Jarrett and Jessica have my email address. And so if you all need to get in contact with me, you can reach out to them. And as always, they know they can always give me a call day or night. So you all take care. I appreciate all of the support that you all are providing to your communities, and just grateful for the collaboration. Thank you.
If I can hold you for just 1 second, Commissioner.
Sure.
I completely echo what Jarrett said, and you are right. The box no longer exists. And you all have been working with us through every step of this way. And my head shake was only because of the U of L UK divide in your house. Let us know what we can do to help you change that. I appreciate everything that you've shared with us here today to help bring us all on board, get us on the same page from your point of view, what's happening out there, and how closely you worked with the governor and recently the public health department in connecting us to all of the people we need on that RRCC team, because it really has made a difference in how we're going to approach these vaccinations equitably and equally across the board. So again, thank you for everything that you have done. Much appreciated, and your time and your patience through this first year of both of us together, as well as Jarrett, doing unprecedented things. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and move on then in the agenda to our Transportation Policy Committee, item number 7 on the agenda, and Amanda.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, everybody. This is agenda item 7 on page 2 in your meeting packet. And our MPO Transportation Policy Committee met earlier today at 12:30 via Zoom webinar. Greg Burris, our community outreach specialist, shared a report of public engagement activities and results since our last meeting. And that included an update on our active transportation plan survey, for which we received over 500 responses, and around 15 completed or planned presentations to area groups regarding the ongoing update to our Metropolitan Transportation Plan, Connecting Kentucky in a 2050. And you can check out the current survey for the next MTP, update at KIPDAtransportation.org/issues. That'll be open until mid-March. Andy Rush also guided a discussion and led the committee to a decision regarding the annual update to our regional safety performance measure baseline and targets. And this is an annual Federal Highway Administration requirement. A baseline was established for each safety metric from 2015 to 2019, and targets were established for each for 2017 through 2021. TPC also approved one cost increase in our dedicated funded program, and that was for the preliminary engineering phase of New Albany's Mount Tabor Road Phase 2 reconstruction project, just adding $3,811 to that project. TPC also approved the MPO's proposed approach to KYTC's current round of SHIFT, the Cabinet's project prioritization mechanism, and we've been allotted this year 49 sponsorships. And sponsorship allows a project to be scored and considered for inclusion in the Cabinet's recommended 6-year highway plan. So as in previous years, we will recommend to TPC projects from the MPO's MTP based on performance impacts. And we'll make those decisions after the Transportation Cabinet Highway District 5 firms up their sponsorships. They'll have 67 sponsorships. So we'll sort of take those off the list and then go through the remainder of the list based on performance impacts for projects in our MTP. We'll take that recommendation, that sponsorship recommendation, to TPC in April. Then later in the summer, the ads and MPOs will have an opportunity to see the preliminary scores from SHIFT and boost or add points to the highest priority projects in our area. So while I'm on SHIFT, I will also mention that the ad also has 20 project sponsorships for Trimble, Henry, Shelby, and Spencer. And we'll also act on those during April at RTC. And Randall Embry corresponded with RTC members this week about that with some additional details. Last TPC item, we also presented as information only, Administrative Modification 13 to our TIP, the fiscal year 20 to 25 Transportation Improvement Program. You can always view those minor changes that don't need TPC approval on our website. That concludes my report of February TPC. I'd be glad to take any questions and action as requested.
All right, any questions for Amanda?
Motion to accept report.
Second.
All right, have a motion and a second. Any further comment, questions? All right, all those in favor, aye, raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Thank you very much, Amanda.
Thank you.
Number 8, active transportation plan, Elizabeth.
Hello, I'm going to bring up my presentation really quick. This is agenda item number 8 on page 2 of your packet. All right, can everybody see my screen? Okay. My name is Elizabeth Park. I'm a transportation planner with the MPO, and I'm here to give you an overview on the active transportation plan that we are currently developing. So what is active transportation? It's the self-propelled, human-powered mode of transportation, such as walking or biking, per the CDC. And we chose this title instead of a bike ped plan to focus more on the human component of it. It's not just building facilities, it's actively moving people as they move around our region, whether it's to work, school, the store, etc. So we just wanted to focus on that with our plan. And why are we doing an active transportation plan? As a bit of a background, it's a little bit of a long story. So back in 2019, our technical committee was asked by a committee member to form a working group to look at the possibility of having a complete streets policy for the MPO. That group met a couple of times to discuss the direction of that policy, but then we had COVID-19 delay meetings, and we chose not to get the group back together until a later date. And then last summer, staff was thinking that it would be beneficial to any kind of policy to take a step back and look at the regional needs for bike and pedestrian infrastructure, because we hadn't had a bike and ped plan for over 10 years. There are several local efforts going on with bike ped planning, some really strong efforts, but again, no regional look at what those needs could be identified as. We also wanted to see how we could feed in those areas of high speed into our metropolitan transportation plan as we hone in on the federal directive for performance-based planning. So we're trying to move into the data-driven direction of deciding which projects get funding. And so this plan could help identify those needs for the MTP. Some of the key questions that we're looking at are, where are people currently walking and riding? Why are they choosing to walk or ride, or why are they not? And then what are the priority corridors that we could put in facilities that would be most impactful? So where are those users, and maybe try to help connect those activity centers, those areas, instead of building a path that maybe no one's going to use just because the land use doesn't support it. So we kind of want the ROI on these projects. And we also want to look at how can a complete streets policy help advance the recommendations that come out of this plan, since that was the original goal of the working group and why this effort got started. Some of the main considerations that we're looking at: safety, of course, number one. We just talked about this in the policy committee meeting for the MPO just prior to this. The safety metrics are sad and ever increasing in importance for the bike ped community. We hate to see anybody die on our roadways. So that's a key concern, as well as connectivity. So where are the facilities? Are there broken links that make it impossible or much more difficult for people to get from point A to point B? There's that equity word again. Equity and environmental justice is also a key consideration as we look at where facilities are being built and how we can equalize that across the region. Land development context, again, the MPO has both very urban and very rural parts of our boundary, inside our boundary. So how can we connect that context with what kind of facilities are best represented for that land use? We're also looking at the interested but concerned group of people. So those who want to walk and bike to the work, school, the store, but they're concerned. They're concerned about safety. They're concerned about access. So how do we tap into that group of people who already have the interest and get them to maybe switch a couple of their trips to an active transportation mode instead of driving a car? We'll also be leveraging live data sets that we already have, as well as some innovative ones. Our streetlight subscription that was recently approved for renewal. We'll be using some of that data to help identify the areas of highest need. And also public input. We cannot do anything without hearing from the public. It is crucially important. And we just wrapped up the survey for this plan, and we had a really good response that I'll share with you in just a couple of slides. And then finally, creative funding utilization. How can we get these priorities funded? How can we put the project on the street? That is a crucial recommendation, a crucial outcome of this plan. So I also wanted to take a moment and talk a little bit more about funding, because that is kind of the ultimate goal. This table represents the funding that is available for bike and pedestrian projects, but these funding pots are not exclusive to bike ped projects. So that's important to keep in mind too. I've listed the MPO funding primarily, but also noting that there is statewide transportation alternative funds and statewide SDBG funds. And then the last three there at the bottom, those are primarily for trails and parks. And I know Danielle has more information on the Land and Water Conservation Fund. And I'd also like to note that those two trail programs for Indiana and Kentucky currently have applications open until March 1st, I think, if anybody's interested. So again, those areas of highest need that this plan is going to identify, we're hoping to find the really good candidates for these competitive pots of money and get those impactful projects on the streets. So what has been done so far? we wrapped up data collection on the bike and pedestrian facility inventory and the gap analysis. So this is sidewalks, multi-use paths, dedicated bike lanes in the MPO area. And then the gaps are any two segments that are separated by less than a mile, but do not have a facility. So that's kind of those quick fix connectors that we would like to address in our MTP and also in this plan. So we updated that. We reviewed the current list of planning efforts in the MPO region to get the full sense of what has been going on with our local partners and make sure that we are working in concert with those efforts. We've had a meeting of that TTCC working group for the Complete Streets and now for the Active Transportation Plan as well. They're going to act as a steering committee of sorts for this plan. So we've met with them and we've wrapped up the public outreach survey and had some preliminary results. We're still tabulating everything, so I don't have any hard results to share with you today, but we will be sharing those on our website in the future. And then what's up next? We are going to be diving into the data, keeping in mind what we've heard from the public about their needs and wants. So really, we're going to be accomplishing three things before August. And the first is those data indicators and those hotspots, identifying those areas of highest need, and then selecting out the priority corridors and potentially even projects that we have in the existing MTP that would be best put forth for the next call for funding. And then we'll have the draft plan and final approval here in the summer, and hopefully getting to that Complete Streets policy discussion in the fall so that we have everything in place by the end of the year. Okay, so the website that I have listed right here is our Bike and Ped planning page on the KIPDA website. This is where we will be posting all of the updates as we make them along this process. I would also like to note that if there's anything that you see in this active transportation plan that you think would benefit an area outside of the MPO, I know Randall Embry would be happy to work with us to see how we can replicate that work for your area. And I know he's such a great resource for the ad counties. And I also emailed Troy Hearn at the State Public Health Department, and his program is currently doing small urban areas, non-motorized travel plans. So that's also potentially a resource for the ad counties, and I can get you more information that he sent me on that on those plans as well. So my contact information is listed, as well as two of our other MPO planners, Michaela and Dane, are doing great work helping me as well. So we're happy to answer any of your questions at any time and get you the resources that you need.
When will the website be operational?
It is currently operational, and right now it just has the draft schedule and the presentation that was made to the working group in that first meeting.
I pulled up the website on my computer and it says briefly unavailable for scheduled maintenance. I guess, is there stuff going on with it?
I am not aware of that, but I can figure that out and let you all know. And hopefully we can get that solved.
All right. Well, thank you.
Any other questions for Elizabeth? All right. Thank you very much, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Moving on, item number 9, Danielle, CDBG CV update.
Hello, good afternoon. I am also going to share my screen here real quick. Is that good? Everybody can see my screen? Okay. Well, as you all know, the governor announced some expanded CDBG funding available for utility assistance relief in our region. And I want to thank all of you all for your patience while Justin Carter and myself reached out to our utilities to try to tabulate our actual need so we could start strategizing on how we're going to submit these applications and how we're going to tackle this. So again, thank you for your patience while we've been working on that. Additionally, just want to reiterate that Jefferson County is operating its own utility assistance program. And I did reach out to River Hills Economic Development District for our Indiana counties to see if there was something similar available. The last time I spoke with someone there was not, but they said to please reach out if you're all looking for similar assistance. So just a quick overview here of our need. As you can see, it's pretty substantial in our 6-county region. We have approximately 4.5 million in total utility assistance needed, and that is all of our delinquent accounts for water, sewer, gas, and electric for all of our providers. We were able to make those contacts with our water and sewer utilities, and we were grateful for Tri-County and Multipurpose to make the connections for with our electric companies to help us get this need established here. So as you can see, primarily the need falls with heating and with our heating and cooling at 3.3 million and water and sewer at right under 1.2 million. Again, with our greatest need being primarily in Bullock County with over 2 million in need. And I know that are kind of shocking when you're looking at the need, but I just want to reiterate that these are the accounts that are delinquent. And this doesn't necessarily mean that these households will apply for this particular funding source, because the households do have to provide an application of income verification and show that their income has been impacted by COVID-19 in order for them to qualify for this program. How that would work, KIPDA is going to be putting together these applications, doing all of the documentation. The community action agencies will be taking in the residents' applications, determining whether or not they are eligible. If they are deemed eligible, they can receive up to $250 per month for 6 consecutive months. And the community action agency will pay the utility directly on their behalf. The community action agency will then take all of that documentation and provide it back to KIPDA, and we will keep that on file and make sure that we are adhering to all of the typical HUD regulations that we do with any other typical CDBG grant. Right now, my staff has already submitted multiple, because we have to go through the typical, we have to submit to the e-clearinghouse, we have to submit to SHPO. We've already started that process for each of our counties and actually a couple of our cities that we know would be interested in pursuing an application. So we've already started that, so we're ahead of the game on that. The next steps for this, I'm going to recommend that each county and all the local officials and the utilities in that county that we schedule a meeting, and this can be via Zoom or we can meet in person, whatever you prefer for us, because I have this broken down per county and it's much in a more distilled manner so that we can decide, we can go over the need for each city and by utility, and we can strategize on how many applications we're going to submit. Because right now the cap is $200,000 per application. That being said, you can resubmit or potentially make an amendment to that application for another $200,000 once you've utilized and closed out that first round of $200,000 that you received, and if there's funding still available. So there's going to be some strategy in how to do this in an organized way and with the least amount of administrative burden, not only on your all staff, but on us and also on the community action agencies, so we can keep this as organized as possible. So I will be reaching out via email to start scheduling some meetings, and so we can strategize on how to move forward. I don't know if there's any questions. Again, I know that the numbers are a little surprising, but there is also additional utility assistance, right? So we have LIHEAP. There's also some utility assistance with the Kentucky Housing Corporation right now. And residents will be encouraged, if they have not utilized LIHEAP or the funding assistance through Kentucky Housing Corporation, they're going to be encouraged to go to those funding sources first before tapping into this funding. So there are other avenues out there besides this program. And is there any questions?
Any questions for Danielle?
Danielle, although Bullitt County is the largest county among those listed here, its allocation is considerably more, on a percentage basis than the others. Is there any reason for that?
What do you mean allocation?
Well, I mean, total utility, Bullitt County is, let's say, not 3 times larger than Shelby County, I don't think. Maybe it is, but it seems like the utility allocation is more than 3 times larger.
It's just that they have substantially more delinquent accounts.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So what you're seeing is the total number of delinquent accounts provided to us by the utilities. So your water and sewer utilities, as well as your electric and gas utilities. So that just means that Bullitt County residents have a higher number of delinquent bills.
I see.
To the other counties.
And I assume everybody's going to be approved here, aren't they? All counties?
Yes. So there's no, we would just have to submit a complete application. We would have to, and part of it is determining the need. So this was where a lot of the legwork was at. We had to determine the need for the volume for the amount of money that we were going to request. So a lot of that's been done already. And so the next steps is just, there will be, the utility companies do have to agree to a payment plan. So an agreement that they're not going to cut residents off that receive funding from this program. Meaning, let's say that the $1,500 maximum that a citizen has access to, maybe that doesn't cover the complete amount of their delinquent bill. The state wants a guarantee that if they give this household funding and pay the utility that $1,500, they want to guarantee that they're not going to shut them off and that they're going to put them on a payment plan for the remainder of that amount. So stuff like that will have to be worked out. So we'll have to make sure that each of the utilities that are connected to the city or county applications has those sorts of agreements in place that we will include in the application. But we would need that in order for approval.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Danielle?
I just want to compliment Danielle and her staff. This has been, to kind of use that phrase, building the airplane while flying it. So they have done a tremendous job of tracking down this information, which will be necessary to do your application. This will be the same process as the usual Cdbg with all those components. So getting all this information is that first step in order to submit. So again, great job by Danielle, but I think going forward, as she suggested, a planning meeting between county officials along with staff here at KIPDA, along with the Community Action Agency is going to be very important and critical to assure the successful completion of this program. So thank you, Danielle.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, moving on to item 10, still Danielle, recreational trail, land and water conservation funds.
Yeah, I'm gonna share my screen again because there's some information on there. Okay, yeah, so as Elizabeth mentioned in her active transportation plan update, there are the Rec Trails program and the Land and Water Conservation Fund program. Those grant opportunities, those have opened. They opened February 1st, and we have until May 31st to submit an application. So if you're all interested in those, it's something we need to get moving on. So please reach out if you have an interest in that. Just a reminder that these are programs that are cost reimbursable and matching. So your Rec Trails program it is a match. There's a match requirement of 20%. So there's a minimum grant request of 25,000, a maximum of 250, and there's a match requirement of 20% of that amount. For land and water, same thing, cost matching reimbursement program. So this is a 50% match. And again, with that same window, minimum of 25,000, maximum of 250,000. So if you're interested, please reach out and let me know. Land and water is related to not just trails, but all sorts of outdoor facilities and outdoor recreation. And the RTP program is not, it's motorized and non-motorized. Just a note on that as well. So both of those are open. And one final comment that's actually not connected to this is actually the next, I just want to make a quick announcement. The next regional hazard mitigation meeting is scheduled for March 10th at 10:30. Olivia Rancine will be emailing you all about that meeting and providing you with a link to the hazard mitigation planning portal to ask for some, for you all to do a little homework before attending that meeting. So just a brief announcement on that. That's it.
All right. Any questions for Danielle? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving on, agenda item number 11, Division of Social Services Business, Lynn Evans. Lynn.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm sorry, but the version of the agenda that I have in front of me doesn't have page number on it, but I will tell you to look for the agenda item 11 printout that does go with what I'm going to present this afternoon.
Lynn, I believe it's page 33.
Oh, thank you so much. So if you'll look at page 33 in your board packet, I have two action items that I need to present. One of them is we're requesting that you approve ratification of the executive director signing the Title III modification contract. We received what the state is calling CRISA funds. They're additional funds for meals. It was $396,571, which gives us basically another month, a little more than 1 month of meals for all of our clients. But that this did significantly help our efforts in meeting the needs of our communities in supplying these meals. And we also will have a second modification that will include the carry forward funds from FY20. But I'm asking that you approve the modification, the signing of the modifications.
All right, we have an item needing action to approve the executive director or ratifying the executive director signing of the modification contract. Do I have a motion and a second, please?
Motion. Second.
All right, thank you very much. Having a motion and a second, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. That item is approved.
The second item is that we had last month you all approved increasing budgets for all of our 3B providers so that we could allocate those additional funds to each of the providers as needed. And as we were working through the actual budget preparation for them, discovered that there were a few additional funds that we needed to allocate. And that's what's listed there for ElderServe, Highlands, and Tri-County. So I believe there's 2 judges that need to abstain from this, but we're requesting that you approve these slight increases. We just need this clarification in our board minutes so that our budget matches what's been approved in the board minutes.
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further questions? So we're going to take a vote, and after I take any opposition vote, if you need to abstain, please state that. So all in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed? Now I'll call for abstentions.
Vogel, Oldham County.
Gotcha, David. Anybody else? All right, that item is approved.
Yeah, I have one more consideration. I'm sorry, I should have just added this in, but we have about 47,000 of the CARES Act dollars that are unallocated in Title 3B. And I would just like permission to continue to allocate those to the providers as needed. Now that's just, we received 1.1 million for Title 3B, which is the supportive services part of the Older Americans Act funds. And I just need approval to spend those as the providers need. It's $47,000.
Okay, Lynn, so I'm assuming that would be at the same negotiated rate. It would just be as the funds are requested for use.
Yes, sir. And we're just trying to give them a little bit of leeway in being able to perform some added duties, outreach for their community, and in consideration of hopefully being able to reopen in the near future.
All right. Need a motion and a second to allow staff to allocate the remaining CARES funds in the amount of $47,131.
Motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye, or raise your hand.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That item is approved.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving on. Item number 12, Jessica, update on activities and services.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for your approval for those items and for continuing to maintain your flexibility and understanding as we continue to walk through these multiple processes of funding, movement, and evaluation. Our providers are still doing a tremendous job out there to provide services, and we are trying to make sure that we support them in every way that we can. Victoria, Ms. Elridge, the commissioner, did speak a lot about what I wanted to talk about today, so I'll touch on a few of those points briefly. The main one being the vaccination program. We have been very fortunate in these last few weeks to be able to connect with the powers to be, so to speak, the Department for Public Health, even the National Guard, regional coordinators on various levels, including the Department for Aging and Independent Living, and some ongoing conversation with a few different providers as well. We have a strong metro focus, focusing on the things that she mentioned earlier, trying to find, we don't have answers. Let me start there. We don't have all the answers. The conversation, though, is very encouraging that we're going to figure this out about how to get people transported to sites. We're working on identifying our clients that we do have. We're hoping to do a lot of public outreach coming up with maybe some additional funds. We'll see how that goes, though. I don't want to necessarily speak on that until we have it in our hands. But it's going to help us to reach outside of our already known clients to the general public and help with registration determination for eligibility, potentially helping with registering for those vaccines, and then determining if they need transportation, figuring out how we can provide that, and working on that homebound client vaccination. The call we had, Jarrett and I, with the regional, they're calling it the Regional Response Coordination Center, the RRCC team. The questions that I anticipated asking them, they already were talking about it on the call before I got a chance to ask questions for a lot of those things. They are aware that our rural counties are a difficult spot because of where the current vaccination sites are. Now, with some of those pharmacy and the Walmart, Kroger locations opening up, it is helping a little bit to get people vaccinated. But we are continuing to work through that, and I'm very hopeful that we will get this done, and we will get this done soon. So if any time you all have any questions about that, feel free to email me or give me a call. I'll be more than happy to answer them. On another note, recently, obviously, we had some of the emergency weather that all of us were dealing with. I do want to say these providers getting these meals to individuals have been absolutely phenomenal. I cannot think of a word actually to describe what they are doing out there to try to get meals to people on a regular basis. This emergency situation, there were even some Saturday deliveries done. There were still shelf-stable meals for those individuals that we did miss a delivery on because of those 2 really tough days. But they're constantly working around and re-coordinating. Sue Johnson is on top of that and walking through that with them every given moment of any day. I'm so proud of them for doing that. As we continue to talk about centers reopening, we are very hopeful that some form of senior center reopening will occur in the next few months, but there is no definite answer on there. I truly think that's going to take for the governor to make that decision and pass it down that a certain number of the population overall is vaccinated. So all these things that we're doing now is helping us to push towards that goal. There's a couple of centers, we know our clients want to get back in centers, especially the ones that have been vaccinated. They've been knocking on the door, so to speak. They've been making those phone calls. They're ready to get back in action, but that will not happen until we can absolutely assure that every single person involved in those services at those sites are safe as we can make it. We're working on still working with home care and getting it back on track, still advertising for those home care aides. We're working very hard right now to identify specifically those homebound clients that have been on hold because they did not want the aides in their home. It really does come down to that. They didn't want an individual to come in their home, so they're trying to remain safe and use whatever they can to get services. So we're focusing on them, trying to determine their vaccinations and those aid vaccinations for providers. We've been walking through Connect special open enrollment in that particular program. Beth and the Connect team has been working very hard through open enrollment there. Our long-term care ombudsman is still working around the clock, basically, to try to make sure that those seniors living in those long-term care facilities are heard and that their needs are met, and walking through that vaccination process as well. So that's the major points of what's happening here. Everything is still, running as it has been. Other than that, those are our main focus areas. Just constantly reevaluating, checking in. I do want you to know that the clients during the weather incidents over the past couple of weeks were called. We were calling them. We were checking in. The providers were calling them and checking in and making sure they were safe and well as well. So we didn't take a day off, so to speak. We made sure that they were doing okay and that if they mentioned any needs, they were met. Knock on wood, we did not have a crisis event, which I'm very grateful for. And I know you guys are too, that our community's being taken care of with your all's help and our providers' help as well. So, like I said, any questions, feel free to ask or email or call me. And thank you for your time today.
Jessica, could you quickly just kind of define what a homebound client is? Because I know that's been used by both the commissioner and you. So just kind of define a homebound client.
Thank you, Jarrett. And that it does vary. Thank you for mentioning that. So truly what we define as a homebound client, and we went back and forth with Dale about this too, but on our end, truly a homebound client to us is an individual that cannot make it out of the home. Like this person is not going to jump on transportation to go to the hospital or a doctor's appointment, or sorry, not the hospital, a doctor's appointment. Of course, they could go by EMS to the hospital. But it's truly someone that does not have support, that cannot leave their home under regular means. We stretch it a little bit further, honestly, so that we can incorporate those individuals that we know have been sheltering in place with their caregiver sheltering in place. So if they're not leaving their home and their caregiver is not leaving their home, we want them to stay in that safe space. So it is. Does that make sense to everybody? Everybody shake your head. Yeah. So yes. So with that said, it's someone that can't leave their home, but we do take into consideration what is happening with our individual clients as well. And we're working very hard to get caregivers despite the age. In every conversation that we're having, we're trying to get caregivers approved for vaccines despite their age. It is very critical that these individuals' caregivers are vaccinated, just like any other professional that's going into their home or that they're going to. So we continue to do that.
All right. Thank you, Jessica, for that report. Any further questions? All right. Moving to legislation. We'll start with Kentucky legislation. Jarrett?
Thank you. If you refer to page 34 in your board packet, there's some bills that we are following. This is a live document, but it hasn't been reflective of some of the movement this week. So one bill in particular would be House Bill 561 that was filed Tuesday by Representative Santoro related to transportation funding, which I know impacts you all. But with Mayor Deere on, if you would please kind of go more in depth into the legislative session, I'd appreciate it. We got you on mute right now.
I got you. Thank you, Jared. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to kind of tell you how Frankfurt's running this year with the COVID. They're absolutely 100% COVID safe up there. In order to talk to a legislator, you have to make an appointment, and then you're escorted to that room and out. And if you testify, you're the only person there to testify with everybody that's been checked in, and then you got to leave shortly after that. There's no lobbying. Lobbying this year is by text and email and phone calls. So to go back to what you were talking about, House Bill 561, that's a Santoro bill that I actually personally worked on several years back. It's a transportation bill that equalizes the funding of the three-part system between the cities and the counties, and also increases the tax on gas in the future. The biggest holdup on it, Santoro has been an absolute jewel on this thing, but the biggest holdup is probably in the Senate, to where they're more concerned about electric cars in the future than having the gas tax now to do our roads as they need to be done. So all of us call, and please push forward on the House and the Senate floor to say, hey, we need the money now for our roads because they got potholes now. Worry about the electric cars in the future. It does have a touch in there for the electric cars. It's at the lifetime of your licensing, but it's not totally devoted to electric cars. We'll have to adjust that in the future. Several other bills I'll go over quickly. KLC is watching 125 bills out of about 800 bills. Bills are brought to the session differently this year than they have in the past. They're assigned to committee on committees, and they may never get out of there unless somebody pulls them out. So not all 800 bills are assigned to a committee. They're pulled out upon the committee request to bring them up to it, and depending on who the legislator is. Senate Bill 80 is a bill that deals with Kentucky Law Enforcement Council. This is a bill that decides the malfeasance and feasance of an officer and how we decertify them. I am on their board, and we are a part of the bill. The Sheriff's Department part of the bill, KCO and KLC, and several others have worked this bill through to make sure that any officer that is not a good officer, that we can eliminate and make sure that we have the means and method and actually the practicality of when we eliminate that officer. The no-knock warrant, Senate Bill 4, is the one that is brought in by Stivers, is a bill that is probably going to move more so than the other bill. It is a no-knock warrant that says we cannot use no-knock warrants except on very extreme conditions. One of the interesting bills out there is local control is one thing we actually watch all the time, whether it's a county or a city. Local control is very important to us, not to give it to somebody else. The dog bill, as it's so known as Senate Bill 82, takes away the control of us, allowing us to control the dogs and type of dog that we have legislation in our own local cities and counties. That one has slowed way down and possibly may be dead at this time. Another bill that we may be looking at for those of you that have food trucks, the state wants to regulate the food trucks. I think we all want to be able to regulate food trucks from our own town, city or county. So that bill is Senate Bill 208. It's a food truck bill, and we're against it because it takes away our local control. House Bill 303 and Senate Bill 14 deals with underground utilities. At this time, we're neutral on it, trying to see where it goes from there, because we don't want to lose the control of the underground utilities, because several of our cities and counties have their own utilities, but we also want to be practical for when somebody needs to go build something. CERS, which is absolutely what all of us have been talking about, and that's what many of you all have asked me about questions over the year. There is a bill there that we're opposed to because it takes us and puts us back to KRS investments and limits our investments. That's going to be a key thing to get our numbers lower, so we don't have to pay in as much, as if we can do investments which are not risky, but a little more away from the fixed asset, similar to what the teachers have, because we're making about 4% with KRS teachers are making more 10 to 12%. If we can get that kind of return, we can lower our numbers and save us money in the future. So we're against House Bill 483 because it limits that. Senate Bill 5 is a very important thing to us, is the liability limitations during COVID. It's both for businesses and nonprofits, and we're putting in cities. It has 8 committee subs. Not all of them have been put in there. So it's kind of faltering in there. It has many good aspects, but if you think about it during this COVID time, if you did everything you could do, and then all of a sudden you opened up your community center or something else and you got sued, it's a matter of how much that lawsuit cost you, not the matter of whether you win or lose. So that's a very important bill to, at least from a state level, to limit our liability. We tried to get it on a federal level, but have not been able to reach that. The right-of-way bill, House Bill 199, is a right-of-way bill to let us as city and counties go in and help the state with the right-of-way when there's contractors in there, to make sure, because we're there day to day, they're not, make sure they're supposed to be there and make sure that they're doing the proper thing when be done. As I said, I'm going to stop there because there's 125 bills and there's a limited amount of time we have today. If anybody has any questions on any bill right now, I can, if I am aware of it, I can tell you, or I can research it and get back to you. Thank you all.
Any questions of Mayor Deareth?
Bill, just real quick, there's a bill out that the PVAs, I think I've got to kill, but the PVAs would take 1% from the fire departments for funding. And this is really a bad bill. If you got fire districts, it could cost us thousands in Shelby County. I've called the speaker, tried to educate him on it. I don't think it's got any traction. I don't know if you're aware of it, but I think we've got it pretty well buried.
Judge, you're absolutely right. And KLC is opposed to it, and so are all the fire districts because of what it does. We don't mind you charging us the way we're charged now. Just don't take any extra money from us and give it to the state so the state can give it. Well, wait a second, do they give it back to us? I'm not sure. I haven't seen that one yet. But, yes, no, we're against it, and it has STAMI at this time. Yes. Yeah. Any other questions? Again, Jared's got my email address. Most of y'all got my phone number, email address. Any time, whether it's a judge that wants to talk KCO and KLC or it's a city, I'm happy to sit down and talk to you anytime.
All right, thank you, Bill. Jared, anything else?
No, sir. That's all I've got.
All right. Indiana legislation. Tuesday was halftime in our legislative session. So if a bill didn't make it out of its sponsored house, it will not move to the other house across the aisle. Just under 1,100 bills have been filed. 30 of those have already been passed by both chambers and are awaiting moving to the governor's desk. Interesting to hear Mayor Deareth's report. I can say that there's probably, of the ones that he reported on, at least 3 have companion bills in Indiana that are working their way through. One is on performance standards and making sure that our police officers are at the standard and can be evaluated to make sure that we don't have bad officers out there. Another one that's interesting is marijuana legislation. We had 4 separate bills that were introduced. I think they will probably be have been reduced into one bill, be Indiana's first attempt to look at legalizing marijuana. I don't think that's going to have any legs this year. It's first introduction, trying to see what the temperature of both chambers are, see if there's an appetite that it'll probably be worked on in subsequent years. Other bills include wind and solar standards and permitting, school choice. In Indiana, you can actually send your child to a school of your choice, and there's some legislation moving its way through there. Some firearms legislation as well. One that is kind of interesting that we've been following is an effort by a couple of legislators to prevent defunding of public safety. I don't think there's a single one of us who would be advocates for defunding, but the way they're going about this is a little different, is that if a municipality, a county has to see a budget cut across the board, and the number they are using is a 5%, that there is no way that the public safety department, which would include telecommunicators, police, EMS, fire, you could not reduce their budget by an amount larger than what you're reducing your overall budget. At first look, that sounds fair and equitable. The problem is if I cannot have a full staff of police officers because I can't get new police officers through the state academy and get them trained and get them on the force. And I have, let's say, $1 million left in my police department budget, and I could use that in another department. I can't cut that and move it somewhere else. So I have to leave that money unexpended, leave those appropriations on the table, because I cannot reduce their budget more than 5% in order to fund another one. So it's just a little bit of work that needs to be done, I think, to get this bill where it needs to be. I did testify against that on the municipality side, but it's just an interesting bill, the way they're going about attempting not to defund police and fire and other public safety. I do not have a report as fancy as Jared put together. Like I said, Tuesday was halftime, so I should have a similar type handouts for you come March. This is a budget year, so it does lengthen the legislation by about 20 days. And they are starting now to see what the effects of COVID will have on spending and what income levels will be and how to put forth the budget for the next 2 years, because we do a biannual budget. So any questions on Indiana legislation? All right. Item number 15 is 2021 budget revision. Tom?
Thank you very much. Agenda item 15, starting on page 44, is the 2021 budget amendment. As you're all aware, last month we presented it, and I wanted to present an update for a couple of reasons. One, Lynn mentioned that we got a considerable amount of money since the last board meeting, $396,000 to go toward meals in the aging program. And we had a few other cleanup items. And then I know that there were problems in reading the schedules last time, and we tried to improve on that sometime. And hopefully that this will be more helpful. And I wanted to talk a little bit about how this flows together. But the very first page is the final budget based on information we have to date that breaks down the budget amongst our indirect costs and each of the departments, the CED, Transportation, and Social Services departments. The indirect costs are those costs that are not specifically easily identifiable with a specific activity. And those are allocated amongst the various divisions to the various funded programs based on the salary and fringe direct cost in each activity. We've got $25,000 of local funds that are allocated for things that aren't allowable to our federal programs, such as any funding that might be considered lobbying efforts to avoid any questions there. But that first page, and again, we talked about it last month, you'll see at the bottom that the projected balances, we've got significant balances remaining across the division. Now in CED, a lot of those balances are activities that will continue beyond June 30th of 21, and we'll be able to have access to those. Within transportation, we held open some positions and didn't fill all the positions that we had in transportation, and that's part of the surplus. And the biggest part of the surplus in transportation is $1,158,000 in our Every Commute Counts program, our rideshare program. And again, we talked about that last month, that people just aren't, we don't have as many vans on the road, and we can carry over some of that money, and the money that was carried over was greater coming into 21 because we didn't buy our second round of vans that we planned on in 20, and we're not buying any vans in 21. So that's causing that significant surplus within transportation. And then within social services, the biggest part of the surplus in that relates to the IPA program. And again, a lot of the activities in that program were curtailed due to the COVID. And we had we had an increase in funding there, and that program hasn't gotten off the ground very much at all. We've got $645,000 of new funds that look like we won't be utilizing those this year. The second page, one of the hardest schedules last week to read, where we had one page that included what's page 45 now, and 44 and 46, which showed what our budget is that's being proposed compared to the ending budget last year. And then the third part of that was the change in budgets. And when we tried to put that on one schedule, and because we couldn't give you that larger sheet, it was hard to read. So these are the first three pages are those items. It's the 45 is the budget that's being proposed. The 44 is 45 is what was the latest one, and then the changes are on the final one. And then each of the schedule or columns on the page 44 for like CED, page 47 shows what activities we have in each within CED. So the total of those comes over to the total page, but it shows we've got various activities and projects within CED. And the next page is the transportation. So this will tell you what makes up these costs in this recap on page 44. And in each month when we give our financial report, we compare against these budgets for just by division. We show which projects, what the budget was, and what we spent in each of those. There are several pages for the social services division because they have so many activities and they have to be tracked by funding source. So we've got several pages that show, again, the activities within social services. And when you add all those schedules together, it's going to show you the social services as it appears on page 44. Now, on page 44, there's $16 million, $16,800,000 of program related activities within social services. And that consists of all those contracts we have. And those are constantly changing as we get more funds from the state and get services out to our clients. So it's the money we have for Dale, and then there's $8.5 million of our CDO PDS program, our Medicaid program, services going out to clients there to make up that 16 million on page 44. I hope that helps a little bit understand what goes into the numbers and how we use those monthly to show you how we're doing against what we thought we would do. I'll be glad to answer any questions anyone might have.
Any questions of Tom? All right, seeing none. This is an item that does require action, so I'll entertain a motion in a second to approve the fiscal year 2021 budget revision.
I make a motion, Beverly.
Second, Bernie.
All right, have a motion and second. Any further questions? All right, all those in favor, aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, Tom, you got a budget revision.
Thanks so much.
Item 16 is February personnel report. Kelly.
Thank you. We had one new hire in February. Her name was Donna Wade. She has been hired as full-time support staff for the Division of Social Services. Donna has been working with us since October of last year, and we finally brought her on full-time February the 8th. We had one resignation that was in our PDS department within social services. That was Tabitha Keelan.
She was a part-time service advisor, so we'll get that position filled quickly. We do have a permanent position, and I actually put Family Caregiver Program Coordinator, but that's the wrong one. It's actually the Kentucky Caregiver Program Coordinator. So that position is currently vacant. Information on that position is on our website, including salary information, which is kipda.org/careers. Our staff count right now is 81 full-time permanent, 3 part-time permanent, and 6 full-time temporary. That concludes my report. If there are no questions, action is requested to approve this report.
All right, thank you, Kelly. Any questions? All right, need a motion and a second to approve the report, please.
Bernie, motion.
Second.
All right, have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Raise your hand. All those opposed, same sign. All right, moving on, item 17, intergovernmental reviews. Jarrett.
We only have one item this month that is in Shelby County. It has been sent for review to Judge Ison and John Park, and it is ready for approval. So action is requested.
All right, this is an item for $33,876,000 from local funds for state planning and environmental assessment. Need a motion and a second. If you could, please.
So moved.
Looking for a second.
Second,
Todd
Jeff O'Brien.
Pollock, second.
I said second, but I'll give it to Todd Pollock, or whatever his name is.
It's just call me Dave.
We got a motion and a second.
I'm gonna give it to Todd. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second on this item. Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is there anyone that needs to abstain on this? All right. Entering the home stretch here, Executive Director's Report. Jarrett.
I want the record to reflect that Commissioner Crothers did join the meeting after our roll call, so I want that to be reflected in the minutes. And then as Mayor Black was referencing earlier, DLG has requested that cities and counties submit their final reimbursement for any outstanding balances for their CARES dollars. If you have any questions or need assistance, please don't hesitate to reach out to our office and we can help you with that. For the meetings next month, the Regional Transportation Council and the Transportation Policy Committee meetings have been canceled. The KIPDA Board of Directors will meet March 25th at 2 o'clock, and the guest speaker that day will be Kentuckiana Works Deputy Director Cindy Reed. And this concludes my report.
Thank you, Jarrett. All right, item number 19, any other business to come before the board? All right, well, I know that I probably am in the majority of people say that we're glad that the weather has improved and the ice and snow has melted. Having been a person born in the month of January, I can tell you that month of February, I can tell you that we often still have snow coming in March. So hopefully if we do, it'll be light, maybe just a dusting here or there, but I know we're all looking for warm weather. We can get out and about, enjoy as much as we can, even with the restrictions we still have in place with COVID. So if there is no other business to come before the board, I'm going to make this easy. I'm going to call for adjournment at 3:36 p.m. today. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you.